from starting off in what we consider a fairly healthy state. And so things like, fasting and a lot of other therapies that have been developed in the field, I think ketogenic diet may be kind of in this category as well. There can be tremendous benefits in terms of their impact in the context of metabolic syndrome and for people that are battling, eating a continual bad diet or something like that. So
adherence. I think one of the reasons for the popularity of intermittent fasting, time-restricted feeding, and sort of what do they call them now? Exclusion diets, where you entirely exclude meat or you entirely exclude plants or whatever it is that adherence is sometimes easier in the all or none. As neurobiologists, we think of this as a go, no-go circuitry. It's harder to make decisions, nuanced decisions often about food than it is to just eliminate entire categories of food. Not eating for many people is easier than eating smaller portions.
And
so some of it I think is neurobiological and psychological.
Absolutely. And we've had, gastroenterology fellows in our lab that come in and we kind of, I think that to kind of slice through the nuance of all this, there's a very simple recipe and a really well-accepted kind of broad definition of what a healthy diet is. Kind of the Mediterranean diet, plant-based diet is, there's just a ton of data that particularly people of European ancestry, but there's a pretty broad acceptance that if you eat mostly plants, for most people, that's going to be very healthy, to the point where, a wonderful colleague of ours, Christopher Gardner, who's studied diet his whole life, trying to establish what a healthy diet is. And people was giving advice. I saw him giving advice to a dietitian who was trying to get all the rules of like what she should be recommending to people that she deals with that are interested in a healthy diet. And she said, so the number one, I'm going to say plant-based fiber is probably super important. And that should be, very high on the list. And she goes on to number two and he said, stop. He said, if people do number one well, you don't need to know any other rules. I mean, it's basically like if you can have a high fiber plant-based diet, for most people, at least, talking about the bucket of people that are already in a healthy state, you don't really need to think about other things because you can't eat too much meat. You can't eat too many sweets. You've already eaten a huge amount of plant-based fiber. Your gut is full. You're not going to be hungry. And it kind of takes care of worrying about what should I eat or what shouldn't I eat. Just eat a ton of whole plant, whole grains, legumes, vegetables, fruit that's high fiber based, not high sugar.
Does it completely exclude meat and fish and dairy?
He was saying like, people can add their own spins on this, but I think that the main rule is just start off with, and it kind of gets back to Michael Pollan's mantra, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. I think if you stick with kind of these simple rules and don't overthink, like, should I have this, can I eat eggs? Can I eat, just kind of stick to these simple rules. It makes it very approachable. But I agree, like, so these gastroenterology fellows that we've had in our lab say that it's really hard. We kind of say to them, why won't you give this dietary advice that's really well known? And they just said, well, it's really hard to get people to change their diet unless you're doing either a go, no-go sort of thing, like, or eliminating something. So, if carrots are giving you problems, don't eat carrots. And that's a very simple, easy instruction to follow, but doesn't really deal with the root problem of why can't you eat carrots, because you should be able to eat carrots.